we gotta talk about the big thing. I don't know how much you're able to speak to it or just enlighten people. The Shinzo Abe assassination. First of all, in my lifetime of a prominent political leader, even if retired, but retired for health reasons, still active, this is as big of a global event as I can remember in my life. Can you give any insight as to, on the one hand, who Shinzo Abe was, why he, what might be some underlying explanation for this, and why the media doesn't seem to care in the way that I thought they would and should?
Well, it's hard for the media to care because Japan has some of the strictest gun control laws in the world. So they don't want to highlight a public assassination using a gun in a country where gun control laws clearly didn't prevent or preclude what took place from taking place. There was a good TV series based on a book called Tokyo Vice that's recently out that will depict a lot of the politics of Japan and how they handled things and how nobody committed murder in Japan during a certain time period when clearly people were committing murder in Japan or just written off as something else. So you have a bit of the Japanese media tendencies to not cover these matters in an aggressive way. Then the Western press that didn't like this particular prime minister of Japan, he was considered to the right of where they wanted, was allied often with Trump. There was a photo today that was circulating where Trump, the Japanese leader who was just assassinated, and Putin are toasting at a table. They're saying, remember when a time when we once had peace in the world. And so but I don't know enough about it in detail because the vacation was actually a vacation for the most part. A little bit of work broken in there, but I just saw the headlines, know a little bit of backstory, but don't know enough to get into to give a meaningful analysis at this point.
Well, and we'll get to it. The only news, I guess, the interesting news is that it was a homemade double-barrel shotgun of sorts. Ex-military guy who maybe had the knowledge to do it. I have so many questions because I saw the video, one of the distant videos. It makes no sense, homemade or not. Someone getting that close to the president with something like that is bizarre. 4 seconds from the first shot to the second, a clear 4 seconds, makes no sense. Setting all that aside, the media, and you know what someone said? They called him an ultra nationalist. It's not so much even the media silence. National Post, Western media demonizing him, demonizing the dead. There's an expression in French, les absents ont toujours tort. Those who are not there are always wrong. Calling a deceased ultra-nationalist as if to suggest he did something to deserve this. I don't understand it, but I was listening to the Duran the Friday morning when it happened. I think it was the Duran, or were they talking? Boris Johnson. Anyhow, I don't understand it. I don't understand how it happened, how the security was so lax, how it took 2 shots 4 seconds apart, and how the media just moved on to something else. But
yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting week internationally. I mean, the Canadian trucker convoy spirit spread to those. Like I said, don't screw with European farmers. Don't screw with Canadian truckers. Don't screw with European farmers. People should learn these. Don't poke the Russian bear. There's some lessons people should really learn. But those Dutch farmers are taking the Canadian trucker tactics right to the core of the government there because of the energy and environmental policies that are trying to steal farms basically from Dutch farmers. Sri Lanka's entire government collapsed. I mean, they were raiding it. They're playing on the gym in the presidential palace, the masses, and then they went for the banks. So, I mean, they were going for everybody there. That too relates to World Economic Forum, environmental policy, bad policy. It's just backfiring everywhere. Their Ukraine policy continues to backfire. There was a great story this week. It turned out that this big Russian general that the British and American media had said Putin was nominating, and he was a gentleman of some girth. Turned out he's not even a Russian general. He's a retired border officer. All the Western media, New York Post, Rupert Murdoch has become a joke, a disgrace in his coverage of the Ukrainian conflict. One fake news after the next fake news after the next fake news after the next fake news. The irony, I mean, what they got banned for was, honest news about Hunter Biden, but they've been all fake news about the Ukrainian conflict. 4chan apparently hacked into Hunter Biden's phone and now is uploading all kinds of documents. I'm not going to speak to that until I know more details about what's going on. Not a fan of hacking of people's information. But understandable under the circumstances because so much has been tried to keep secret about criminal behavior of the Biden family. But yeah, it's been interesting news all around the globe. I mean, I was gone for 10 days, and it's like bam, 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 world-changing events back to back.
Well, Abe assassinated, Johnson ousted. I don't know, how familiar or how comfortable you are talking about the Johnson thing. The only thing that
he blew it. He blew it the same way Republicans are trying to blow it here in the United States, and the establishment, political establishment. He came into power because of Brexit. He replaced the predecessor because of Brexit, and because working class middle England voters were no longer had a place in the Labour Party that was increasingly woke and pro-immigration, especially, and ultimately embracing opposition to Brexit, wanting another vote. And that's how he got in. But not long after that got resolved, he shifted to an obsession with rebuilding a British empire, started talking about, from London to the Mediterranean, obsessed with the Ukrainian conflict beyond all proportion, just adapting one ridiculous self-destructive policy after another. You can hate Putin all you want. Slapping yourself in the face over and over again is not a good way to win. And so even the Russians were making fun of it today. They had a tweet with the Jack Nicholson character from The Shining all frozen and saying, more sanctions. We need more sanctions. That, the West is going to freeze to death at this rate. And so it's no question he'll be out. But the people that replace him are just as bad from in terms of dumb policies on energy, on environment, on Ukraine. And so Boris Johnson is proof to the Republican establishment here was what it should be, that Trumpism or its like is the future. Bushism is dead. And if you try to resurrect it, you'll end up like Bojo.
I'm going to bring this up because I'm not sure I even understand the reference. Hey, Barnes,
this is the Japanese islands that are on the border between them and Russia that have been in dispute for quite some time, about a century or so. Russia has walked away from the negotiation table because of Japan sanctioning a bunch of Russians related to Ukraine. It would not be wise for Japan to try to do it. Japan doesn't have much of a military. We did that deliberately after World War II. So they're not going to be going much of anywhere.
But Robert, so this is the thing, and I was listening to the Duran, Alex and Alex, and they're saying, the scandals caught up with Boris. How do scandals of which everyone is already aware suddenly catch up? If not to say, there's other things at play here that said, Boris, your time is up, get out. And this is the day before Abe's assassination. I don't want to feel like I'm connecting the dots or connecting any, global dots, but how do scandals of which everyone has already been aware that are baked into the price of the stock suddenly catch up with Boris Johnson to the point where overnight he has to resign?
Well, really, he went full lockdown and he went full Ukraine. In the same way, I almost went full Jew in New York, in Brooklyn. I was sitting there eating in Brooklyn, and I was like, "Oh, it's Brooklyn. This bagel is so good." And I'm like, "Holy cow! I sound like Mark Robert and Viva talking about bagels in Florida."
Robert, you're already full Zionist, so you may as well just go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but totally. Yeah, exactly. I still like that meme where they made me Orthodox. But credit to Mark Robert, he and Eric Hunley at the unstructured.locals.com gave me a great list of places to visit in Brooklyn that were fantastic. But Boris Johnson was, because of the lockdown, it wasn't the scandal that did him in. The scandal was emblematic of his bad lockdown policies. It was that they were hypocritical, they were duplicitous, they were just bad policies, and they're not conservative policies. He wasn't conserving anything, and so these, him going full lockdown is really what gutted him. And then the Ukraine thing just put it over the edge in terms of its domestic economic impact. Ukraine may seem popular on paper in the UK. It's not when people's utility bills are doubling. So the scandal was just the easy way to use as the excuse for the final push, but it wasn't the real explanation. The explanation was bad lockdown policies, bad Ukraine policies.
But now, what is going to be the impact of Boris's ousting? It's going to take a couple of months to formalize. What is going to be the consequence on UK foreign policy vis-a-vis Ukraine in particular?
It will probably stay just as bad because the people that are likely to replace him have the same hawkish policies. So they're not as tied to the bad lockdown policies, which have mostly ended in the UK. So that they don't necessarily have, but they're going to get all the baggage of the bad economic consequences from those lockdown policies that they're now being felt in inflation, especially, but probably in stock declination, et cetera. Britain was also the insurance industry, finance industry for the globe. You're nuts now if you put your money in Britain. You're nuts now if you rely on insurance from Britain. They're about to lose one of the last vestiges of their empire, which was the financial insurance dominance they had in large parts of the globe. That's you're nuts if you continue to do business in the UK. Just ask Roman Abramovich how that's turned out. So that nobody's saying we'll do business there moving forward. So Britain is just going down, down, down. There's nothing that's going to stop it because its political class is even more corrupt than the American political class. And the problem, if you're a working class, middle America, middle England Brit, is you have nobody to support you right now. The Liberal Democratic Party doesn't support your interest. The Labour Party doesn't support your interest. And now increasingly the Tories don't support your interest. So you have nobody representing you. And that's kind of the problem.
Okay, well, we're gonna see. We'll see what happens there. But the idea that it's going to be a couple of months.
Imagine if your options were George W. Bush and Barack Obama, and that was it. That's basically what you have in Britain right now.